in terms of applying to college, the things that you're going to do, the big things are, of course, obviously your essays, at least specific to how you can improve your chances at becoming a nurse. The other things, like, of course, like grades, test scores, etc., those are all by themselves independent of the stream or the topic of the stream. But essays are something that are really relevant that you can talk about and let your own experiences or desires of wanting to become a nurse influence. So if you're wondering what to include in your why major, your why school, your why program essays, this is absolutely a great that your interest in the field is absolutely a great resource for you, for yourself. If your prospective school doesn't have supplements, it's a good idea to include this information in the Common App essay. So sometimes what that might even mean, as much as it sucks to have to do this, is maybe you have actually 2 different drafts of your Common App. Again, you don't have to do this by any means, but something to keep in the back of your mind of if there are some prospective schools that you really like, but they just don't give you an opportunity to write supplemental essays. And opportunity, I say that as though it's a good thing. I'm generally, I remember when I was applying to colleges, I was generally quite happy if there weren't supplemental essays, that there was just less work. But if you just don't have the opportunity to have more work, then that might mean that you have more limited channels to demonstrate, again, why you're interested in this specific school and why your interest in nursing can really play into that interest in your potential fit with that school. And whereas other schools might have those supplements where you can actually add that in. So you might have 2 different drafts of your Common App. One that includes the kind of why major or why school or why program specific elements, and then one draft that doesn't, and you can include those elements in the actual supplemental essays. So again, just something to kind of about. A general guide is to funnel your essays from general interests to specific personal stories and goals. So start with your high-level interests, what kind of attracts you to the work of actually being a nurse, not just the incentives of, I saw this one person and they were super cool and they had a lot of Gucci clothes on. Turns out they were a nurse, so now I want to be a nurse. I don't think anyone's ever written an essay like that or had that logic in terms of wanting to become a nurse, but just to choose a very extreme example of what would not be a strong essay. So what attracts you to the work of actually being a nurse that might be actually powerful, right? For example, you like taking care of people in the community. You want to make a difference in the health profession, but not necessarily as a doctor. You're passionate about making patients' healthcare experience as comfortable and pleasant as possible, right? You might be able to talk about your personal experiences that led you to want to be a nurse. So an experience during a hospital visit or a checkup, an anecdote from a relevant volunteering experience, and then ending the essay with your major and career goals. So mentioning what hypothetical concentration that you might be interested in, which is a registered nurse, maybe that's the end goal, a nurse practitioner, etc., etc. It doesn't have to be something that's set in stone, but just so you can kind of anchor your personal narrative and offer your admissions officer, whoever's reading it, some kind of steer to think, oh, so this is how they're seeing themselves. This is how I should be understanding them. Helping them better understand your values and motivations will solidify you as a more real candidate and someone that they can relate to. Now, this isn't necessarily the chronological route that you have to go, and what I mean by that's I'm saying this in a very ambiguous way. So basically what I'm saying is that I talked about talking about personal experiences, anecdotes, etc., and that was like one of the second or third things that I talked about. That doesn't mean it has to be the second or third thing in your essay. And in fact, it's often quite powerful to start in medias res, start from the middle in the beginning of your essay. And so what I mean by start from the middle is like you start in the middle of action, in the middle of an anecdote, and you just put your reader into it so that they don't really know what's going on, but they're hooked. And they think, wow, I want to know a little bit more about this. So maybe you start with a slightly dramatic moment. You don't have to over-dramatize it, and in fact, you absolutely should not over-dramatize it. But even just little things and introducing your reader to action or some kind of dialogue or insight in something that's, again, not something that has to be incredibly profound or crazy, that can be a really powerful way to start off your essay. And it's a good way for you to force your essay into showing your reader things instead of just telling your reader things. It's such a cliche, but especially for your college essays, you want to do as much showing as you can instead of telling. Of course, you're going to have to do some telling right at the end when you talk about your own major and career goals. You're going to have to tell your admissions officer about that. And so was about to go on a different train of thought, but I'm going to stop myself here. So anyways, you will have to do some telling, but broad point being that the way I just went over the general advice for how to write, generally how to write your essay does not have to look exactly formulaic to the way I just laid it out.